Hello, in this video I'm going to compare the Leica M240 to the Leica CL. Just to give you some background information, I started off my Leica photography with the Leica M9 and then eventually part exchanged the M9 for the M240. Now the M40 is designed the same as every other Leica M camera. To give an example, there's a Leica M3 and there's the Leica M240. The Leica M240 is slightly wider in the body, but it is quite similar in many respects. I wanted to get a backup camera for my Leica wedding photography, so the Leica M was my main camera and then I wanted a second body. So I looked online to try and find a cheaper Leica to have as like a next step down Leica, and so what I bought myself was a second-hand Leica CL. This is a APS-C crop sensor Leica compared to the M240, which is full frame. Now I bought this camera just over 12 months ago, not expecting anything particularly special. I just expected to keep it as a backup camera and use it for weddings as a second camera, because I like to have two camera bodies at a wedding, partly for backup reasons and partly because it gives you more flexibility to have two cameras. So I bought this with not really any expectations, and then to my amazement I stopped using the Leica M240 and I've used this camera pretty much for all my photo shoots for the last 12 months, and the M240 has hardly been used at all, which is a real shock. So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to talk about 6 reasons why the Leica CL is better than the Leica M240. I wasn't expecting it to be better, so this is as a shock to me as anything. This video would potentially help anybody who is, maybe they have a Leica M8 or Leica M9 and they've kept that for a long time and they're looking to upgrade and they're thinking, do I buy a used Leica M240 or do I get something smaller like a Leica CL? Now my advice would be keep the M9 as a full frame Leica and then get yourselves one of these. I'll tell you why next. So I made myself a small list to try and make sure I didn't miss any of the points, but excuse me. The first obvious reason is the size. The Leica CL is a much smaller camera than the Leica M. Ignore the fact that this has got a lens on and it's got the magnifying viewfinder on the back. The body itself and the weight, this is a much lighter camera, so for travel photography, for hanging around your neck all day, walkabout photography, the Leica CL wins 1-0. That's the first point why the Leica CL is better. The second problem with if you've owned a Leica rangefinder before, you probably know this. If you haven't owned a Leica before, you probably won't know this. Leica's are rangefinder cameras, which means you're focusing through these two windows, you're not focusing through the lens. So when you're looking through here, not through here, which is making it different to a DSLR. The biggest drawback for me with a rangefinder camera, as much as I really love them, which is why I use Leicas, is if the camera gets knocked, then the rangefinder becomes out of calibration. And so when the camera, you look and it looks like it's in view, the two lines are lining up, the two images overlap. The camera says it's in focus, but it's not in focus. And that's because the rangefinder needs recalibrating. So the biggest problem with this is, if you're doing a wedding or something really important, you have to rely on your camera to take sharp pictures. If I'm using a 1.4 lens like here, like the Summilux 50 1.4 or the Noctilux, it gives quite a shallow depth of field, on a full frame camera especially. So needing the risk of it not being calibrated is a big negative point for me against rangefinder cameras. I always kind of question when I'm taking a Leica on a overseas photo shoot or wedding. I'm like, is this calibrated? If I'm shooting my lenses wide open, is it going to be in focus? And that's always a worry in the back of my mind, even though I've had Leicas for quite a long time. So that's a negative against this, but it's a positive for the Leica CL. The reason it's a positive for the Leica CL is this is got an EVF, so there's no rangefinder, as you can see. It's got an electronic viewfinder, which basically means you're looking through the electronic viewfinder and out the lens, which in turn is what you see is what you get. So if it's in focus in the viewfinder, it's in focus in the final image. So reason number 2 to buy a Leica CL and not a Leica M240, no rangefinder issues. It's always going to be sharp unless you make a mistake like user error. So that's number 2, so that's 2, 0 so far. Point number 3, I used to teach before the Leica SL and before the Leica CL. I used to teach quite a lot of fellow Leica photographers how to use their Leica M camera. People used to find me online and I used to teach them, and they were having problems with photos not being sharp or struggling to focus correctly. What I've noticed is since the release of the Leica SL and the Leica CL and any of the other electronic viewfinder cameras, what seems to have happened is everybody that couldn't use a Leica M and get good results have just switched to a Leica CL or a Leica SL. Now, the reason they're doing this, in my mind, is they couldn't focus accurately with the Leica M. So what they've done is they've bought one of these cameras, and the CL gives you focus peaking, which means if you look to the viewfinder, and I've got it set up so I can roll this button 2 times and it magnifies 2 times closer, and so I can see the eyelashes on the model on, say, the 50mm Noctilux or any lens 135mm f4, which is on a rangefinder like the M240. These are not designed, well, they're not. It's not easy to focus a long lens on a rangefinder camera, especially 135mm. So, point number 3, focus peaking allows you to always create sharp images with the Leica CL because you can see every pixel, and this doesn't have focus peaking, so you can't. So 3 positives against 0 so far. Point number 4. The 4th reason why the Leica CL is a better camera for me is it has better high ISO, I'd say 1 stop better. So this is marketed to be usable at 3200 ISO, but I find it on my particular Leica M240, I see banding if I'm working in low light at ISO 3200. This you see banding in the images, and that they're not good enough to use, which is a shame. With the Leica CL, you can use 3200 easily, and I've used 6400 and still had sufficient image quality to use for, say, clients' work such as a Leica wedding, or less so with models, because models I make the lighting good. I make additional lighting if I need to for a model shoot. With the wedding, sometimes it's run and gun, so you have to use the available lighting, for example a church where they may not allow flash. So 4th reason, this is at least 1 stop better high ISO than the Leica M240, and for wedding photography, for me, that's a big plus, because sometimes you need the extra light. So 4th reason, better high ISO. Tongue twister. Okay, point number 5. I didn't expect this. I also thought the Leica M240 images were quite good. The dynamic range of the Leica M240 is better than the Leica M9, which is better than the Leica M8. If I still got a Leica M8, and if I shoot with the M8, it's very easy to lose both shadow detail and clip the highlights, which means you lose the highlight detail or you blow the highlights. With the Leica M240, sometimes I've clipped the highlights, but it's generally been okay. The Leica CL, the dynamic range is far superior to the Leica M240 in that it's pretty much impossible to clip the highlights if you're doing normal photography. It's got enough range to give highlight detail through to shadow detail. So again, in harsh lighting, the Leica CL is better because of the better dynamic range. So point number 5, better dynamic range, Leica CL versus Leica M240. The 6th reason to buy a Leica CL is it has exposure preview, which means the picture you see through the electronic viewfinder is the picture you get in the final image. So if it looks bright in the viewfinder, it's going to be bright in the final image. Just to explain, with a rangefinder camera such as the Leica M240, you're using a true rangefinder, so you're literally just looking glass through glass, so there's no electronic viewfinder. This means there's no exposure preview. What I found is when I only had Leica M9 and Leica M240, I was completely fine, and I never really noticed. I'd normally gauge a shot by eye, the exposure by eye, take a photo, check the LCD, and then normally adjust up or down one stop either way to get the correct exposure to then take the photos. That's how I've always worked, and I didn't think anything different. I then moved from the M240 to the Leica CL, and the Leica CL just makes you very lazy. You just don't have to think anymore in terms of the gauging the exposure by eye, because you can see the final photo through the camera. You're not really thinking, you're just increasing or decreasing your shutter speed or opening up or closing down your aperture until the picture on the back looks like the final photo that you want to have. So what I found is when I've gone from this back to the Leica CL back to the M240, I was completely crap on the M240 to start off with in terms of gauging the lighting. I'd forget that what I saw was what I'd get. I'd take the picture and they'd be blown out by 5 stops overexposed, just because I wasn't thinking I need to adjust the shutter or the aperture. So this is a real big plus, I think, for the electronic viewfinder cameras such as the Leica CL. Exposure preview is it's very useful, particularly if you're working in mixed lighting, or if the lighting is continuously changing. The sun comes in, the sun goes away behind the clouds. If you have a blue sky day all day, it's not going to be very valuable after the first photo. If it's cloudy all day, again, you're not going to see any benefit. But if it's always changing, or if you're doing during, say, one of my Leica weddings, I'll be inside shooting photographing the bride and groom. They'll go into the church, it'll suddenly go really dark, but I'll see it through the viewfinder, so I can quickly dial in the correct exposure, keep shooting. And then they'll come out the church into the bright daylight, and suddenly it goes up from ISO 800 or 1600 to ISO 100. You've got to quickly spin the dials to get it back to the correct exposure. With this camera, I'd probably lose the first couple of photos going into the church and coming out of the church when I was kind of walking with the people, because it takes you a minute to either remember or to have time to think to adjust because you're not seeing it through the viewfinder. You don't necessarily think in the moment, oh, I need to get ready to change the ISO down or increase the shutter speed. So the exposure preview is particularly handy in changeable lighting situations. Okay, so point number 6, exposure preview, no exposure preview. So that's 6, 0 so far in terms of 6 reasons you should get the Leica CL rather than the Leica M240. Now the 7th point is, again, if you've never used a Leica you probably won't know this. Leica rangefinder cameras have built-in frame lines, which means they're normally from roughly 28mm through to 135mm, which means if you fit a 28mm lens you can look through the viewfinder and you can compose the picture. If you fit a 135mm lens you can compose the picture, but it's quite difficult to focus because the frame line becomes so small in the centre of the viewfinder, it's not so easy. If you use a lens wider than a 28mm on most Leica M cameras, you need an external hot shoe. I use a Voigtlander hot shoe, Voigtlander wide angle viewfinder, which fits on the hot shoe. I use a 21 to 25mm width, which means it does my 21mm lenses and my 25mm Zeiss Biogon lens. So it's additional equipment, and it's not necessarily as easy. With the Leica CL, with the electronic shutter, every lens you can compose, whether it's a 50mm Voigtlander or a 135mm Leica lens. Because it's electronic, it's like using an SLR camera, and you can see 50mm or 28mm, or it'll look the same, it'll fill the screen on every lens. So that means you can shoot wide angle and you can compose accurately without needing the hot shoe additional viewfinder. It's worth just pointing out that this is a big plus because it makes it easier to focus on long lenses, and it gives you the ability to compose on long lenses and see, and it gives you the ability to compose on wide lenses also, especially super wide lenses like the 15mm or 21mm. It's worth pointing out on the Leica M240 it does have live view mode, which means like the Leica CL, you can switch to live view mode and then you can see the picture that you would get in live view on a 21mm lens without needing the hot shoe 21mm external viewfinder. I'm just using 21mm as an example. Every lens you can see on the live preview on either camera. Some people that are probably used to using smartphones may use the Leica CL with the kind of using it, shooting from the hip like this. Turn it on. So they might look like this, they'll be taking it from like this. I'm used to using proper cameras, so I'm always using the viewfinder, almost always. The live view on both cameras does allow you to shoot from very low angles or very high angles and see what you're getting. So the live view allows you to compose on any lens without needing the external viewfinder. For me, if you're using the EVF like an actual viewfinder rather than using the screen, this is another plus for the Leica CL versus the Leica M240. Because for me, I'm using it like this, but I can see my 21mm lens through the actual viewfinder. Where on this camera, on the M240, I can't. I need to focus through this one and then compose through the additional viewfinder here. So it's much slower and it costs money and it's more equipment to carry. So point number 4, reasons to buy the Leica CL is you can use it for all, you can see and compose and focus easily with all lenses, from 15mm super wides through to 135mm without needing an external additional viewfinder for the wider lenses, wider than 28mm. Okay, those are my 7 main reasons to buy the Leica CL. But some people may also appreciate the fact that the Leica CL has touchscreen. It's not really something I use, but it's worth noting that there are a few kind of additional benefits to the features of the Leica CL that the Leica M240 does not have included. So why would you not buy the Leica CL? There's two reasons. One's a huge reason, and one's a more of a minor reason. The main reason is the Leica M240 is a full frame camera. This is a crop sensor camera. If you like shooting super shallow depth of field, say portraits and super soft backgrounds, then the Leica M240 is the better camera to get. The second reason to get for the same reason, a full frame sensor means you can shoot wider lenses and have the full width. So because of the crop factor on the Leica CL, 35mm on the full frame is 35mm. 35mm on a 1.5 crop Leica CL is 50mm. So if, like me, you use M lenses on your Leica CL, suddenly your 50mm is no longer a 50mm, it's now a 85mm approximately. So if you like to photo wide landscapes, for example, if you've got a 21mm, like a nice Voigtlander scope, which I use, or the 21mm Zeiss Bogon, again, awesome lens. If you've got 21mm, which is your wide lens, if you put it onto this camera, it's no longer a wide lens, onto the CL. So and a 50mm on the 50mm Voigtlander on the full frame M240 is 15mm, but on the Leica CL you have to times that by 1.5, so it's going to be 22mm, so you lose the width. So the main reason to get the Leica M240 is super shallow depth of field, and if you like wide lenses, both linking to the fact that it's a full frame camera. Okay, one downside to getting the Leica CL, or one reason to buy the M240. The second reason to buy the M240 is battery size. This is a Leica M240 battery and charger. This is a Leica CL battery and charger. If I take out the batteries, you can see M240 battery, Leica CL battery. The M240 battery will probably last me all day before I need to change, say for a wedding when it's just non-stop. The Leica CL battery, I need to charge it at the venue because I'm running one and I'm charging one. So if you're out shooting all day, the M240 battery life is far superior to the Leica CL. It's a minor point against the Leica CL, you just buy another battery. But if you want to know all the positives and negatives, all the main positives and negatives, then that is one reason to buy the full frame Leica M240. As you saw, they are different chargers, so if you've already got a Leica M240 and you're looking at a Leica CL, different chargers, different batteries, just worth noting. Now I should probably point out, this is the kit lens I bought on the Leica CL, but this is not how I normally use the camera. It's the Leica 18mm Elmerit lens with the crop factor makes it into a 28mm f2.8. Awesome lens, especially for travel. It's super light, really light. All my Leica CL photography is with manual focus Leica M lenses. So what you need for that is the Leica CL to Leica M adapter. You can get a cheap eBay version, but I got the 6-bit coded one. The lens information will pass through to the camera. So I put this onto the Leica CL body, and then what I'll do, I'll borrow the lens of the Leica M240 for a second. And now that's how I use my Leica CL. This is my most used lens. I'm here in Budapest and I've been using it for all the portraiture. So that is how the camera looks with a M lens. Bless me. Okay, so just to conclude this short-ish review of the Leica CL versus the Leica M240, after having owned the Leica CL for 12 months and pretty much using it for all my photography. The 7 reasons to buy the Leica CL rather than the Leica M240 would be excuse me for looking at my notes, it's smaller and lighter, so it's easier for travel. There is no rangefinder issues, which means you're never going to miss focus of an image unless you use error, and it's so easy to use, you shouldn't ever miss. The third point, focus peaking, which means you can critically focus every lens, every Leica M mount lens. That could be lenses such as, say, a Soviet Jupiter, one of the Jupiter like clones of Leica lenses, where it may not necessarily calibrate correctly with a Leica M body. My one particularly, I can't use it on the M because it's not calibrated, but I can use it on the Leica CL, because what you see is what you get because you're focusing through the lens. So point number 3, focus peaking. Point number 4, the Leica CL has better high ISO, roughly 1.5 stops from my experience without looking at any reviews. That's just user experience. I can use this at ISO 6400 versus 1600, 3200 with banding on the M240. Point number 5, much better dynamic range from the Leica CL. The M240 can clip the highlights, and if you underexpose it, you see the banding on the M240. I've never experienced any banding on the Leica CL. Point number 6, exposure preview. This has been huge for me. It's made me lazy with the M240. I used to have no issues with my exposure, but it's quite nice to see exactly what you're getting. As I say, especially for, say, wedding photography, where you're working in different conditions and different rooms with different light, constantly moving. I found it a real benefit. And the 7th reason is the Leica CL, because of the electronic viewfinder, you can use every lens from a 50mm through to 135mm Leica M mount lens via the adapter and be able to compose it, where with the Leica M240 it only has frame lines from 28mm to 135mm. So therefore you need if you want to use your rangefinder for image to focus the image, you need an external wide angle lens viewfinder for the composition, or you could just use the live view, but I think most true photographers will be using the rangefinder, so you would need the extra external viewfinder. Tongue twister. So that's 7 reasons why the Leica CL is better. If, as I say, using it as an example, if you shoot portraits and you like super shallow depth of field, get yourself the M240, or probably more likely get the M10. The M10 is going to have a pretty similar dynamic range and high ISO as the Leica CL, but it's full frame. So this is crop, 1.5 crop, and the M10 is full frame. So the M10 would solve the better high ISO, better dynamic range, but you're still going to have the issues of rangefinder calibration, needing an external wide angle viewfinder if you shoot wide angle, and weight. The M10 is slightly lighter than the M240 because it's slightly slimmer here. Well, it's about as slim as the M3. So pretend this is the M10, so it'll be slimmer. But it's still a heavier camera. So still heavier, M10 still heavier than a CL, still going to have rangefinder calibration issues if you give it a knock, or over time eventually it's going to get knocked. And using a rangefinder, even on the M10, you're not going to have the exposure preview. So reasons to get the M10 or M240, just to summarise: buy it if you like full frame images. The battery life of the M240 is better, but that's not a reason to buy a camera. Although I've used the Leica CL for the last 12 to 14 months non-stop, what I've tried to do in the last couple of months is start to use the Leica M240, and I'll try and share some images from Budapest, where I'm talking from now, using the M240 to show you that shallow depth of field that you can get from a full frame camera. A cheaper way to see that would be to just buy yourself a Leica M3 or M2 or M6, M4P, they're the ones I use. Buy one good lens, such as the 51.4, have one film body, which is full frame because it's film is full frame. That will give you your super shallow depth of field for arty pictures, for your key portraits, and then for everything else where it's not really as much of an issue, use it like a CL. I use this for running, I use it for cycling in terms of carrying because it's so light. I was hiking this morning with the CL and 2 Hasselblads and the M3. I just use this to meet the images and to take a few snapshots to check my composition, and then I'd shoot the proper photos, as I like to think of it. I only really have the interest in the film images. I'll shoot the real images with the full frame equivalent film M body, or the Hasselblads or Mamiya RZ or Mamiya 6, blah blah blah, whatever. So highly recommend the Leica CL. There's probably plenty of reviews online, but I'm going to write a short kind of follow-up post, because I'll link the original article why I bought the Leica CL, and then I'll write a follow-up article with lots of example images on 12 months later, am I still happy with the Leica CL? And this was just to give you a few visuals of the main pros and cons I could think of as to why I still think the Leica CL is a better camera for me. But hopefully from listening to this you'll be able to have some takeaways of which benefits are better for you. If you're a landscape photographer, this is better. If you're a travel photographer, this is better. Unless you do portraits, the Leica CL is a better camera. I can't think of any other reason to buy the Leica M240 or Leica M10 other than the fact that you like super shallow depth of field images. There might be some super obvious one I'm not thinking of, but that's the only reason I can think. And yeah, for a walkabout lens, I was just walking around all day and it's super light, where this can be quite heavy. It's worth pointing out, the 18mm lens does help make this the lightweight setup. Once you put the adapter on, and then some M lenses like the Noctilux, it's no longer a light camera. But yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised by the Leica CL. So if you're in the market to buying a new Leica, or a used Leica, a different Leica, or perhaps your first Leica, yes, a Leica M is the true rangefinder experience. Look into the viewfinder. But my suggestion would be, if you're just buying a Leica for the rangefinder experience, buy a proper Leica, buy an M3. Do your key images on film, and then use your Leica CL for everything else. Because it's light and compact, you can put it into your jacket pocket, and because it's going to be with you every day, you're going to get all the images. You're not going to carry this in your pocket unless you've got huge pockets. So yeah, for me it's a no-brainer. Pleasantly surprised, I wasn't expecting it, but top marks for the Leica CL. Okay, thanks for watching.